Welcome to another episode of Israel HVAC Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to Israel HVAC Podcast. This is John Israel from Israel HVAC on YouTube. On this episode, I want to talk about thermostats. There's been a lot of debate on Facebook. We have HVAC Facebook groups. Most of you that listen to this podcast are part of them. There's been a lot of debates about thermostats. A lot of people have been talking about the Nest lately. I've heard people talking about the Ecobee and stuff like that. Well, I want to give my opinion on thermostats. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. The Nest is a complete piece of junk. You know, there's guys on Facebook that think that it's okay and this and that, but the Nest is junk. It's probably the worst thermostat on the market. Now, there's also other guys that like the Ecobee. The new Ecobee 3, it's similar to the Nest. I used to own an Ecobee. I will say that the Ecobee is better than the Nest, but in my opinion, the Ecobee is still not a good thermostat. In my opinion, Honeywell is the best out there. To me, you cannot find a better thermostat than a Honeywell. I mean, Honeywell's got it all from just a basic thermostat to Wi-Fi, you know, the smart thermostat. I mean, if you want a smart thermostat, use a Honeywell. I mean, Honeywell makes the Lyric. It's round just like the Nest and the Ecobee, and it does all the same things, and it's a much better thermostat. I mean, I just don't know what people see in the Nest and the Ecobee, because like I said, the Ecobee I think is better than the Nest, but still to me is not an impressive thermostat at all. I was not impressed with the Ecobee at all, and I actually took it off my house. Now, I know Ralph Wolf from TNN Services is a fan of the Ecobee. Obviously, he's had better luck with it than I have, but to me it was a waste of my money. I ripped off the Ecobee and went with the Honeywell 9000 and haven't looked back, and I absolutely love the Honeywell 9000. But now Honeywell has come out with the new T-Series. You know, they have the T6, which is just a basic thermostat. You can use it as programmable or non-programmable, and you can also use it for a conventional straight cool system or a heat pump system. You can buy a 2 heat, 1 cool, and up to a 3 heat, 2 cool. And then they make the T6 Lyric, which is Wi-Fi capability. So when it comes to thermostats, you know, Honeywell's got it all. Now, another thermostat that I do like is the new Emerson thermostats. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Emerson thermostats. So the Emerson thermostats are really good. I really enjoy them. For those of you that are not sure which one I'm talking about, I'm on their website right now. So I'll give you guys the model numbers. Emerson calls it the 80s, or the 80 series. Your conventional 1 heat, 1 cool, non-programmable model number is a 1F as in Frank, 83C as in Charlie, -11 Nancy and Paul, NP, N as in Nancy, P as in Paul. Your heat pump non-programmable, which is a 2 heat, 1 cool for just a basic single stage heat pump, is going to be a 1F as in Frank, 83, H as in heat pump, -21 N as in Nancy, P as in Paul. Great thermostat. I like this thermostat for elderly people. And the reason that I say that is because even though it's a digital thermostat, it still has the little slide where you can go to cool, off, and heat. And a lot of these elderly customers, see the Honeywell, the new T-Series, you have to press the mode button, like the 5000, until you see the words off, cool, heat. A lot of the elderly people get confused with that, and they like to actually be able to read the words off, cool, heat at all times and just slide the little slide. So with the Emerson stat, with those model numbers that I gave you, you still have that option. I changed out a condenser and a coil the other day for an elderly lady that was older, and she, I gave her the choice between the Honeywell T-Series and the Emerson. And she went with the Emerson because she said, well, I think the Honeywell might confuse me. I can actually see the words off, cool, and heat on this other one and slide the little thing. She goes, so I'll take that one. I said, okay, that's fine. It's a great stat. You can't go wrong with it. Because for those of you that don't know, the T-Series has replaced the Honeywell 3000, 4000, and 5000 stat, and 6000. I mean, they're probably still out there right now, but eventually you're not going to see any more Honeywell 3000, 4000, 5000, or 6000 series. The T6 and the T6 Lyric is taking the place of those thermostats, and those thermostats will be discontinued from Honeywell. So, personally, my personal favorite is the Honeywell. I love the new T6 thermostat. I've used it several times. I haven't had any complaints on it. It's a great all-around thermostat. It's actually the only thermostat that I'm stocking on my truck right now because, like I said earlier in the podcast, it can be used as non-programmable or programmable, and it can also be used as a one heat, one cool, straight cool system, and it can also be used as a two heat, one cool heat pump single stage system. So it's the best all-around thermostat to stock on the truck, because that way you don't have to stock a 3000 heat pump and a 3000 straight cool and a 5000, or a 6000 if somebody wants programmable. This thermostat does everything. So it's one thermostat on the truck, but I'm carrying 4 of them. So I'm carrying 4 thermostats that are able to do heat pump, non-heat pump, programmable, non-programmable. So I'm very happy with that. I'll probably keep a couple Emersons on the truck for elderly people in case I'm far out, out in the country, because I do a lot of work out in the country. But that's the only 2 thermostats that I'm going to choose to deal with, and preferably the Honeywell, but I have no problem with the Emerson either. So that's my take on thermostats. But as far as the Nest is a no-go. I gave the Ecobee a shot, and I wasn't impressed. I had another customer that I put in a Rheem heat pump system for. He bought his own Ecobee, I think, from Best Buy. I advised him not to. He did it anyway, and he's had trouble over the winter. The Ecobee does not call, when it calls for auxiliary heat, like if the house is really cold, or it gets really cold outside, the thermostat is supposed to call for the auxiliary heat to help the heat pump out. And the Ecobee would never call for the auxiliary heat to help the heat pump out. Even if he would go for a direct signal to emergency heat, it wouldn't work. He called Ecobee technical support to make sure he had everything programmed right. He did. I called Ecobee technical support to make sure that the customer had everything programmed right, and he did. So it just didn't impress me. And, between the problems that I had and the problems that he had, I'm just not impressed with Ecobee. So I talked him into putting a Honeywell 9000 since he was looking for Wi-Fi and all that good stuff. He went with a Honeywell 9000. We took the Ecobee off the wall, and he's been happy ever since. So in my opinion, Honeywell is the only way to go when it comes to a thermostat. Honeywell is the best thermostat on the market, and the only other thermostat that I would recommend or choose besides Honeywell would be the Emerson line. So, anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I want to thank y'all so much for listening and for the support. And don't forget every Monday to check out the Cowboys of HVAC podcast with myself and my good friend Zach Ciota. Also check out Zach Ciota's Working Joe's podcast. Every Monday morning at 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and we're talking AM in the morning. There's a new episode of Cowboys of HVAC at those times every Monday. Every now and then, if we have a 2-part interview, we'll do one Monday and release the second part Wednesday. But you can always bank on every Monday morning of a new episode of Cowboys of HVAC podcast. But anyway, thank you for listening to this edition of the Israel HVAC podcast, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Check out Zach Ciota's Working Joe's podcast on workingjoesroundtable.com and iTunes. Zach is a HVAC company owner and been a technician for over 20 years. Come along as he shares his experience on his podcast.